The invitation arrived on a gray morning, slipped beneath the thin, chipped wooden door of the small apartment where Elena lived with her 3 children. She didn't recognize the handwriting at first, bold, looping strokes across a creamy envelope, but something in her chest tightened even before she touched it. It had been 5 years since she'd last seen his writing. 5 years since she walked out of the large mansion she once called home, carrying only a suitcase, her dignity, and the last fragments of a broken heart. She picked up the envelope cautiously, holding it like something fragile or dangerous. Her hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Her eyes scanned the scripted lines and her pulse slowed, then quickened again. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of," she broke off. A sigh escaped her lips, a short, almost laugh-like exhale of disbelief. He was getting married. After everything, after the storm that had torn their lives apart, after the harshness with which he'd pushed her away, he was marrying someone else. Her ex-husband, Damien Stone. The name still had an unfamiliar weight, even though it once clung to her like a second skin. She remembered how it felt to say it with pride, to hold onto his arm at charity galas, to see his name sparkle on billboards, in magazines, on the television screen. Damien Stone, the billionaire real estate mogul, the man who could turn any building he touched into a symbol of luxury and wealth. Once she had been at his side. Once she had loved him with a devotion that consumed her entirely. But love had not been enough to survive the storm of his ambition, his shift in priorities, his belief that success meant replacing his humble beginnings with people who looked the part. Somewhere along the way, he began to see her as a misfit in his world. He married her young, when they were both struggling, both climbing. She had been with him when he had barely enough money for rent, when they shared instant noodles and danced barefoot in their tiny studio apartment. But when success wrapped around him like a new skin, he shed the old parts of himself, starting with her. She reread the invitation. The venue was grand, a luxurious hilltop resort known for hosting royal families and A-list celebrities. The wedding date was only a week away. She let the invitation fall onto the coffee table, its gold lettering flashing under the fluorescent light, and sat down slowly on the edge of the worn couch. She buried her face in her hands and took a long, trembling breath. From the bedroom, she heard small footsteps, light, hurried, and unmistakably mischievous. "Mommy, what's that?" Amira, the eldest, peeked around the corner, her curly hair bouncing and her dark eyes shining with curiosity. Before Elena could answer, the twins, Liam and Leo, emerged from behind her, each peeking around her hips like tiny soldiers guarding their commander. The triplets were 5 now, lively, bright, and the very reason she found strength every morning despite exhaustion, despite hardship, despite the constant struggle of raising them alone. She had never told Damien about them. She remembered the day she discovered she was pregnant, the same day he had signed the divorce papers. He had been cold, detached, claiming he needed a partner who supported his public image, who matched his status. She had been devastated, unable to bring herself to tell him what grew inside her. Pride held her back, fear held her back, and by the time she considered telling him later, too much pain had passed between them. She couldn't let her children grow up believing they were unwanted by a father who once cast their mother aside like a misplaced accessory. The triplets climbed onto the couch and Mira reached for the envelope. "Is it a bill?" she asked, her nose scrunched in suspicion, the way she always looked at the stack of envelopes that arrived each month. "No, sweetheart," Elena murmured, smoothing her daughter's hair. "It's an invitation to a party." Liam's eyes lit up. He loved balloons. "To a wedding," she said, trying to sound neutral. "Your father's wedding." The triplets froze. They had asked about their father before, of course. Always curious, always wanting to know why they didn't have one like the other children in school. Elena always told them gently that their father lived far away, that he didn't know about them yet, but one day, perhaps he might. "Are we going?" Leo asked, swinging his legs. He was the quietest of the 3, but when he spoke, his words always landed like pebbles dropped into still water. Elena opened her mouth to say no. She wasn't sure why he had invited her. They had not spoken in years. The last time they did, his words had been sharp, cutting her farther than he realized. He had blamed her for holding him back, for not fitting into the life he wanted. She remembered walking out into the rain that night, her shoes soaked, her heart shattered. No, she had no intention of attending his wedding, his celebration of a life that had no room for her. But then she looked at her children. 3 small faces, 3 pairs of eyes watching her hopefully, waiting for her answer. They had never seen their father, never seen the world he came from, never seen the man whose blood ran through their veins. She felt a strange calm settle over her. Maybe it was time for truth. Time for closure, time for dignity. We are going, she said quietly. Mira squealed. Liam jumped. Leo nodded as if he had already known. But we don't have clothes for a wedding. Mira added, practical and mature. That was true. All their clothes were thrifted, repaired hand-me-downs, but always clean, always neat. She made sure of that. We'll find something, Alina said. Don't worry. For the next few days, she worked extra hours at the bakery where she kneaded dough before sunrise and decorated pastries long after the stars appeared. She saved every spare coin, every tip, every extra shift. She skipped meals quietly so her children wouldn't notice. She washed their small clothes with careful hands, planning, organizing, preparing. Then something unexpected happened. On Thursday evening, just 3 days before the wedding, Mrs. Rowan, the elderly widow who lived across the hall, stopped Alina in the hallway. She had always been kind, always watching out for the young mother of 3. My dear, she said, holding a velvet box, I heard from Mira that you're going to a wedding. I want you to have this. Alina opened the box slowly and gasped. Inside lay a delicate pearl necklace, its luster soft and warm. I can't accept this, she whispered. You can, Mrs. Rowan said firmly. It belonged to my mother. I wore it to my wedding, and you should wear it to yours. Well, to this wedding, if nothing else. It's time someone reminded that man what he lost. Alina looked at her gratefully, blinking back tears. The next day, as fate would have it, her boss, Mr. Harrington, overheard her speaking with a coworker about needing dresses for the children. He insisted on helping and arranged for new outfits to be tailored for the triplets. You're one of the hardest workers I've ever seen, he said, and your kids deserve something special. By the night before the ceremony, everything was ready, except transportation. She planned to take a bus. It would take hours, but she didn't see another option. And then another twist in fate came. Her boss's sister, a wedding planner for high-end clients, showed up at the bakery that evening. I heard about your situation, she said warmly, and I'm heading to the same venue tomorrow. I can arrange a car for you, a proper one. Alina shook her head quickly. It's too much. I don't want charity. It's not charity, the woman said softly. It's respect. And so, the next morning, when the sun cast golden streaks across the pavement, a sleek black limousine pulled up in front of Alina's apartment building. Neighbors peeked from their windows. Children on bicycles stopped in their tracks. Even Mrs. Rowan clapped her hands with delight. The triplets rushed toward the limo, their eyes sparkling. Mama, this is huge, Amira exclaimed. A rocket car, Liam declared. Leo simply touched the door gently, his eyes wide. Alina stood for a moment, taking it in. She wore a simple but elegant navy blue dress, her hair pinned neatly, the pearl necklace glowing at her collarbone. The children wore matching outfits, Mira in a white dress with tiny embroidered flowers, the boys in little suits that made them look like miniature gentlemen. She helped them inside the limo, then slid in behind them. As the door closed, she felt her heart beat harder. She didn't know what awaited her. She didn't know why Damien had invited her, or what he planned. But she wasn't the same woman he once controlled with his dismissive words. She was stronger now, not richer, not more glamorous, not part of his world, but powerful in ways he had never valued. She was a mother, a survivor. The limo wound its way up the hill toward the luxurious resort, where fountains shimmered under the sunlight and floral arches framed the entrance. The parking lot was filled with luxury cars, sleek sports cars, imported SUV, drivers in uniforms, but none stood out quite like the limo arriving last. As the car rolled to a stop, murmurs rippled through the crowd outside the venue. People turned, heads leaned close together. Someone whispered, "Who is that?" The chauffeur stepped out and opened the door with a polished bow. Mira jumped out first, followed by Liam and Leo. Their outfits shone in the morning light, their hair neatly combed, their faces bright with natural confidence. Then Alina stepped out, every conversation paused, every set of eyes turned toward her. She walked forward slowly, her posture straight, her eyes calm. She wasn't dressed extravagantly, but she carried herself with a grace and quiet beauty that drew admiration instantly. The pearls at her neck glowed, the limo gleamed behind her, and her 3 children flanked her like a small royal court. Inside the venue, Damien stood near the altar in a tailored white suit, hands clasped behind him, scanning the crowd with impatience. His fiancée, Serena, heart-famous socialite, model, and face of half a dozen luxury brands, waited in another room preparing for the ceremony. Damien checked his watch again. She better show up. He muttered to his best man. You really want your ex-wife here? The best man asked, confused. Damien smirked. Oh, absolutely. I want her to see what she missed. I want her to see what real success looks like. She's scraping by somewhere, I'm sure. Might as well give her a glimpse of everything she could have had if she hadn't been so. He paused because the room suddenly grew silent. He turned toward the entrance and saw her. His breath caught. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. This elegant woman in navy blue, stepping through the grand doors with the poise of someone who belonged on a magazine cover. The pearls around her neck, the limo visible through the glass doors, the children walking beside her. It didn't make sense. Then his eyes widened. Children, 3 of them, they all looked like her, but more than that. One of the boys had his eyes, the shape, the color, the intensity. The second boy had his jawline and nose. The girl, her smile was the mirror of his mother's. The realization struck him like a physical blow. He walked forward stiffly, his face pale. Elena, he whispered, staring at the children. Who are they? She met his gaze steadily. Our children. The room erupted into gasps. Our, he stopped, choking on the word. What do you mean, our? You heard me, she said, her voice calm. Your children, our children, the ones you never knew about because you were too busy throwing away everything we built together. The best man stared between them, speechless. Damien felt dizzy. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have cared then? Elena asked, raising an eyebrow. When you told me I wasn't good enough to stand beside you, when you said I didn't fit your new image, when you humiliated me during the divorce. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The guests whispered furiously now, phones subtly lifted, cameras taking photos. Damien swallowed hard. He had planned to embarrass her, to parade his success in front of her, to make her wish she had never left him. But she stood before him more dignified than he had ever seen her, and those children. He knelt instinctively, looking into Liam's eyes first. The boy tilted his head at him, curious. What's your name? Damien asked, his voice breaking. Liam, the boy said proudly. And yours? He asked the other. Leo. And you? He asked Mira softly. Mira, she said, then added in a surprisingly protective tone. You made Mommy cry once. She doesn't think we heard, but we did. Damien shut his eyes. That invisible punch landed deep. He rose slowly, looking at Elena again. You should have told me, he whispered. I owed you nothing after what you did. She replied simply. Before he could speak again, a shrill voice echoed through the hall. What is going on? Serena stood at the top of the staircase, her gown glittering, her makeup flawless, but her expression twisted into shock and disgust as she took in the scene. Damien, who are these children? She demanded. Why is she here in a limo looking like some VIP? Who are they? They're mine, Damien said softly. Serena let out a harsh, humorless laugh. Yours, all of them, triplets. Elena nodded once. Serena's face contorted. You told me she was insignificant. You told me she was some nobody from your past, not someone who. Damien flinched. Serena continued. I knew inviting her was a ridiculous idea, but now I see it's worse than that. You still care about her. That's not true. Damien said quickly. You're denying your own children right now, Elena said quietly. Interesting. Serena turned red. This is ridiculous. Damien, choose right now, them or me. The room held its breath. Damien looked at his fiancée, then at the 3 small faces staring at him with innocent uncertainty. At the woman he had once loved deeply, a woman who now looked at him with no anger, only truth. He felt a crack inside him, one that had been waiting years to break. He swallowed. Serena, I can't ignore my children. Serena stared at him, furious, betrayed, incredulous. Then your wedding is over, she hissed, because I am not marrying a man with baggage. She ripped off her veil, threw it on the floor, and stormed out. Her mother ran behind her. Guests gasped, cameras flashed. Damien stood frozen. The wedding collapsed around him. His fiancée was gone. His reputation teetered on the edge of scandal. Whispers swirled around him like a storm. And still he could only look at his children. After several seconds he spoke, voice trembling. Can I talk to them, please? Elena hesitated, but the children looked curious, hopeful. She nodded slowly. Damien knelt again, this time with sincerity rather than shock. I'm sorry, he said to them first. I didn't know you existed, but that doesn't excuse anything, and I'm sorry for hurting your mother. Mira crossed her arms. You should be. Liam poked Damien's cheek. You look like Leo. Leo smiled shyly. Mama says family should stick together, but we didn't know you were ours. Damien looked up at Alina, guilt in his eyes. I want to make things right, he said quietly, not just for them, for you too. She shook her head. I'm not here for you, Damien. I came because my children deserve to know where they come from. And they do, he said. But they deserve more. She raised an eyebrow, such as, he stood slowly, a father. The triplets exchanged hopeful glances. Alina took a deep breath. Being a father isn't about money or a last name. It's about showing up. Can you do that, Damien? He nodded instantly. I will. The children smiled, all three of them. That alone softened her heart. But only slightly. The wedding guests dispersed, gossiping wildly. The grand ceremony was ruined, but something unexpected grew from the ashes. Damien spent the next hours with the children, walking the gardens, listening to their stories, answering their endless questions. He even laughed genuinely, for the first time in years. Alina watched from a distance, unsure of what she felt. Anger, relief, nostalgia, sadness, hope. It tangled inside her like threads of different colors. As the day turned to evening, Damien approached her quietly. I know I don't deserve it, he said softly, but I'd like to be part of their lives, any way you allow. She studied him carefully. He wasn't the arrogant man she remembered, not right now. Today had humbled him in ways money never could. We'll start slow, she said finally. Visits, calls, we'll see how things go. He nodded gratefully. Thank you, he hesitated before adding, they're amazing, Alina. You raised them beautifully. She looked away, emotion tightening her throat. I did my best, and it shows, he said gently. As the limo returned to take her and the children home, Damien crouched and hugged each of the triplets goodbye. Mira whispered something to him that made his eyes water. Liam handed him a small drawing. Leo hugged him longest. Alina watched in silence. Before she entered the limo, Damien touched her arm lightly. You didn't come here to be shamed, he said. You came here to prove something, and you did. I didn't have anything to prove, she replied, stepping inside. You just finally saw what you threw away. The limo door closed. As they drove down the hill, the children chattered nonstop, excited about their day, about meeting their father, about the gardens and chandeliers and the enormous cake they'd somehow ended up tasting. Alina leaned back, watching their joy. She didn't know what the future held. Maybe Damien would change, maybe he wouldn't, but now at least the truth was out. The children had a father, and she had her dignity. The limo sped through the fading light, the sky painted in shades of red and gold. She closed her eyes and smiled softly. For the first time in years, she felt free.